Got to get the sign up.
Yeah, I do. I need to get a sign.
There's people here already.
It's funny. I don't have the viewer count on my screen today.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be a mystery to me.
Well, there's 3 people, and I'm sure that includes us.
Perfect. I see Stefan's in chat already. Welcome. So, do you have a good Christmas? I think last we chatted, that was the holiday that happened.
Yeah. Christmas wasn't too bad actually. I got a few things. I've got some new trainers, which is nice. And I also treated myself to a new knife sharpening set, which is very nice from Sharpal. So I've been, sharpening things way too sharp. Diamond laps and diamond lapping compound and all the rest of it. So I now have a Leatherman that's positively lethal. When you slice your fingers off as you open it. Anyway. So and I've obviously I've not been out in the workshop for the last week really, but I've been back out today for the first time. So and I'll be out here for most of the rest of the week. So
nice. Yeah, I was out all last week, and I think I left on the 18th, and I've only been back for a couple of days, but I'm going back out again for New Year's fun. So
yeah,
I'm not going to be back home until maybe the 4th or the 5th.
Yeah,
but once I get back, it's going to be a very busy schedule. There's a lot of stuff going on. So first of all, I want to wish happy holidays to everyone else who has watched the channels, our channels, and the live streams, of course.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, and obviously a Happy New Year for when it happens in the next couple of days.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I've almost hit 500 subscribers.
Dean Cook's just put no elf in my barn.
Well, Dean, once I get into that elf, you may not want to have one in your barn either. The sills are pretty rusty on that thing. I know it looks okay on some of the shots, and it does present well, but it's got a lot of needs.
We have a saying in the UK. It's a 20-footer.
Yeah, depends on if you're looking top down or bottom up, right?
It's just from 20 feet, it looks fine. Don't go any closer.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'll have some fun with it, but it'll probably get a mechanical restoration just to make it safe more than anything else. So we'll see how that goes on. But I've got so much stuff going on. I got a new gimbal for my camera, so I got to use that a little bit in one of my tuning videos. The Black SPI, got to use that on the driving footage. That was kind of fun testing that out.
Excellent. Oh, that reminds me, my wife bought me a new phone stand, like a small one so I can, I nickname it lathe cam because I normally stick it on the lathe while it's machining, but it's one of those little tripods that you can just put it anywhere. So that'll be useful, no doubt.
Yeah. This one's trick. It's got the 3 gimbals, 3-axis gimbal motors, and then it's got built-in software to do some interesting zoom features. So looking forward to using that this year. And I did get a set of microphones, so hopefully that can improve some of the audio issues I've been having.
Yeah, excellent. So we'll just say hi to people coming in. We've got 12 people online now. We've already got 6 likes, which is excellent. Keep the likes coming. Thank you very much. So we got Stefan Mini Cooper, hi. Gamer Pole, hi. And then Stefan's just put there, just sanded the last coat of epoxy primer on my Mini. Now a layer of filler, primer, and ready for some paint. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. That's a long process. I've done that a few times. And every step of the way, you get more nervous about what it's going to look like. Takes forever, but it's worth doing.
Yeah. I think the Bodywork is all about patience, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, patience and just the knowledge that you have to follow the process, the steps for the paint, the sequence of paint layers, and and obviously it's always about the initial prep of the bodywork dictates the quality of the finish at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, there's no point having perfect panels if the body gaps are all wrong. So, oh, nice, a tartan red with black. Yep, that'll look nice. Yeah, I'm not sure about the Elf. It was a light blue interior car with a kind of a medium blue exterior. Florentine blue, I believe, was what it was called. Not sure if I'm really in love with that combination, but you know where it is now, it's way off from anything even remotely close to it. So I'm tempted to put it back to that color scheme just because I really enjoy the colors that come from the early Mini range, especially the Mark ones.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a huge fan of the brocade. I do like it, but just some of the other colors I seem to prefer more. So we'll see.
You got one there from Darren Robert Shaw. Loving the Elf, Darren. Going to be a great watch. There you go. So if
Perfect.
that's enough for you there, from people telling you to do some more filming, then well, I think they're going to be overloaded with it at some point, I would imagine.
Yeah. The problem is that I'm so backed up right now with long winter stuff that it may be a while before I can get to the Elf. I've got a complete engine rebuild and gearbox rebuild to do for a car that's in the garage right now. And
Yep.
then as soon as that car is finished, I've got another car coming in that needs an engine block change. So it's going to be 2 back-to-back heavy rebuilds before I can even get to anything else. And
Well,
yeah,
it's just gonna be YouTube overload by the sounds of it.
well, I'm worried about having enough time to do the filming work. It's just so
Yeah.
many things to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fortunately, the Elf is fairly complete. Like, it's not missing a bunch of things that make it impossible to finish. You know, so that's what I'm looking forward to at least dealing with something that's complete.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got plenty of people in there. Are up to 26, 13 likes. Thank you very much. Keep the likes coming in. I think what we got there. Yeah, Stefan Miniku also watched the videos from Darren. Nice, that Elf. Yep, another comment for you. We also got Scott J there. Any other carbs coming from Berlin approved by me? Watch this space. So I do intend to have more carburetors. I just haven't sorted it out yet. So I think in the future there will be a HS4 and there will be a HS2.
Very nice. That'd be exciting.
Hope the HIF 44 is selling well. It doesn't sell as much as you might think. So we've certainly sold a few, but we haven't sold like thousands or hundreds.
Yeah, there's a customer of mine that could use one. I don't know if he's pulled the trigger on getting it or not. I'll have to pester him.
Yeah.
Is the manifold package available as well now?
Not well. I've sent it to mini spares, but Christmas got in the way, so I need to just touch base with Simon and just to see what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's got a pallet of parts he needs to send me after the New Year's.
Yeah. Better not contact him because he'll be getting. Are you gonna have these parts yet?
Yeah. Well, I already need more. I told him to hold shipping until after Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
Now I need more stuff.
Well, there you go. Right, so we're up to 30 now. Blimey, that's come up quick. 30 in 8 minutes. That's not bad. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I assume most of you are on your holidays. So, yeah. Anyway, what have we got now? Who is attending you at IMM 2025? Darren. Yeah, and what will be the cost for a tuning slot? Okay, tuning slot cost not been worked out yet. Yeah, so I'm not going to say what the price is yet until I've talked to people and worked stuff out. It's going to be more than it would normally be at a normal event like the Riv Run or something like that. But it's not going to be, extortionate. It's going to be certainly in line. It's going to be a lot cheaper than having me come around your house, that's for sure. So, the minimum price for me coming around your house now is about £250, right? Plus parts. So it's going to be much cheaper than that. So it will be a bargain if you've come all that way to see me. then it's going to cost money, but it's not going to be anywhere near as much as it is for me to come to my usual customers. So yeah. Okay,
I don't
Avenia,
know if
hi.
I'll be attending.
When setting the timing, the vacuum port on the carb disconnected from the distributor has to be closed. Mine just dies if not. Yeah, you can close it. It's fine. You can plug it off if it keeps the engine running. You can also just turn the idle up momentarily while you're doing that to keep it running.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be attending IMM yet. I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah, we just to let everybody know, myself and Darren have been talking about if Darren wants to come for the IMM, but because obviously for Darren, being in America, it's a long way and it's quite expensive. So Darren's got to work out a plan.
Yeah, I was out there for the one in 2009.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
Guitar 3 Rich, clutch, cable or hydraulic? Reason. Hope you have a great happy new year. Well, the only A series that was fitted with a cable in terms of transverse was an Austin Metro Mark II. That had a cable clutch, but all the other applications are hydraulic, so doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, just as long as you've got the appropriate setup and all the appropriate levers for the system that you're using. Okay, Scott J, is it possible for the piston to stick on the way down? He's talking about an SU. If I go over 3 to 3,500 RPM going back to idle, it will hang up at 15 to 16 AFR for a few seconds. New shaft bushes as per Dodd video HS6. Well, it doesn't really matter what the AFR is as long as the engine stays running. If it's coming down, it's going to be lean. That's how you want it. So I can't see a problem with that.
You're decelerating. You're not needing the fuel.
Yeah. So on a modern car, you would be off scale because it turns the fuel off when you're decelerating. So, people worry about going lean, right? There's this incessant problem with people and classic cars, right? If we go lean, we're going to kill the engine. This is the mentality that people have, right? That's not true. If you go lean when the engine is not under load and the throttle's closed, this is what should be happening. That's a good thing, all right? Lean is good. Lean at full power is not good. Okay, that's a bad thing. Lean at cruise is a good thing. All right. So the only time that you want rich fuel mixture is under full power. Okay, that's it. Every other time, lean. So it's a terrible mindset that people have managed to pick up over the years. That, oh, more's better. No, more is terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely that sweet spot of cylinder pressure that comes from the right amount of fueling. And
absolutely,
if you hang out there, you have a wonderful driving machine. But yeah, any deceleration situation, you just need the fuel to go away until you're back to accelerating again.
Yeah. Stefan Minikers, I was at IMM 2014 when you was with Andy. Also tuned my Mini. Okay, nice one, Stefan. I've already met you. Then I didn't realise that. So yes, I was at 2019 and I'll be at 2025 as well. Bill Beard, any help? I'm after a 74 mil piston ring for an old Amiga. Sorry, I haven't got any. Okay, Tony Armour. Is it required to replace the dashboard oil every 12 months? No, just top it up. Just top it up, Tony. That's all it'll need. Just keep an eye on it. That's all.
Yep.
It doesn't always do it. This is in neutral to idle at the stop, so that's okay. It drops the idler a bit, just making sure. Oh yeah, so it's just when you're pulling up to the light. That's classic. Yeah. What you might want to do is just make sure your piston is free to drop and there aren't any issues, just to make sure it isn't hanging up. But the other thing is this a rebuilt SU, Scott? Properly rebuilt? Have you checked the piston cushion at the bottom of the piston to make sure that there's sufficient gap? Because sometimes that will come down, and if the gap's too small, she'll cut out or try and die on you.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's one of those overlooked little details that most people miss because it's not just talked about in the manuals, and it's certainly not discussed anywhere else. And I know that you are constantly replacing them because they get worn out, and they're not part of the rebuild kit either, so you don't know that you're missing it.
No, and the trouble is, there's a reason why they're not part. They're very cheap, but I need a lathe to fit one.
Yeah, I know.
So it's a precise fit, so it's got to be machined. I machine them to get the right height afterwards. Chuck Heiser, Darren, must be winter in Colorado. Your hair is getting longer.
Yeah, it is. I figure it's cheaper than turning up the heat. Nice to see you, Chuck.
Guitar 3 Rich, thanks for the reply. Would a Metro electronic dizzy be too much for an 850? Well, the problem you've got there is it won't fit, because a Metro electronic dizzy's got an A+ drive on the bottom, and I wasn't aware of any mini 850s, although A+ engines. Although supposedly there may have been Metro 850s, but I do believe that was the old A series block. So the Metro electronic dizzy won't fit in an 850. What you want to do is get yourself a 45D. Yeah, there's the body for one. Get it right. Get yourself a 45D power spark. And the most important thing is, Darren, about getting a new dizzy,
you got to get it recurved.
You've got to get it recurved. You don't just get a dizzy and put it in, because you have to make sure the advanced curve it's delivering is actually right for the application. So that's where you can call up one of us, and we'll do our best to supply a dizzy. Please don't ask me for dizzies at the moment, because I'm still whacked out with work. So I'm actually thinking this year I might stop doing dizzies, but only do the ones for the trade and my tune-ups that I go out to, just because I've been so busy. So and my order book for tuning, I'm taking bookings today for May. Okay.
Wow.
Right. That's 5 months from now. Okay. I'm already taking bookings for. I am going to be rushed off my feet this year. All right. So I'm being very careful to not overbook myself this time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Whenever I go out to do a tune, I'm always bringing usually two distributors for that application, one more aggressive than the other, and just running them through and testing them in the field. But I have a small, what we call a library of distributors on the wall, various curves that I just go and pay off depending on what I'm going to do with. But now that it's the end of the year, I've pretty much run through those, so I need to actually get another order set up. I do have a few distributors I need to recurve and get sent out. So thanks to everyone who's already ordered some from me. It's been an interesting year, and the guy in Australia finally got his after about a month of shipping time. So
well, at least he got it.
Really
That's
happy.
the main thing, and he was happy as well.
Yeah, picked up quite a bit of mid-range and high-end torque.
Nice. Okay, so questions coming in. 46 people online, 20 likes. Push the likes up, guys. Thank you very much. Boad, hi. I noticed my Innocenti twin that you tuned in the summer is running leaner at idle since the cold weather. Yeah, that's normal. So what you need to do is just ever so slightly, maybe half a flat or one flat, just a very slight amount, richen that mixture slightly. I think you've got a wideband in that car, so just tweak the mixture back to where it was, and obviously when the weather warms up, you'll have to lean it off again.
Yeah, I have the same problem.
Yeah. So the point is, because you've got carburetors that don't self-compensate because they got fixed jets, then they'll only meter the fuel on the how they were set on the day. So if the temperature changes, you have to make the change yourself.
Yeah, that difference in air intake temperature between summer and winter, and just general temperature of the rest of the components. Yeah, it's significant. I've noticed at least 15% change between a morning start and an afternoon run.
Yeah.
And the engine's at the exact same temperature because it's running on thermostat, but it's just the ambient air temperature is different and the density of air. Yeah, winter definitely throws a little havoc to a fixed jet carb.
Yeah.
Which is why the factory redesigned the carburetor to have the wax stat or the bimetallic strip in terms of the HIF series.
Yep.
Got our mugs.
Oh, we're a bit slow on questions tonight. Come on, everybody. Otherwise, you're just going to hear me and Darren talk about naff stuff.
Well, we certainly have a busy year. I know that.
Darren Robert Shaw, if you stop doing dizzies for the minions, could you recommend anybody else we could send them to? Darren. Or I should say it's that way, isn't it? Yeah, I've got to go that way. Yeah.
It's never the way we think it is.
Obviously, he's in the States, so Darren will do him. Darren actually does. So, for example, if I get somebody in Australia or somebody like that wants anything, I just generally get Darren to do it. So Darren knows how to do a distributor. He's also got experience of altitude as well. So, yeah, we got a plan for that.
And don't forget the customs and shipping process as well.
Yeah. So
that's a fun one.
Stefan Minico, the bimetallic jet holder in the HIF arranged that. Yeah, that's what that's for.
Yep.
Compensate for temperature.
And the nice part about the HIF is that it's inside the flow pool. So it's protected from the elements. You can't whack it with a screwdriver.
Ovini, a 59D with electronic ignition works for the high power system, ? It certainly does when you use the right system. So the most important thing here is you need a module with that part number on. I don't know if you can see that. Try that. Ooh. M5 or PM5. So that's the module out of the Power Spark dizzies that I use, and that will fire a 0.8 ohm coil. I don't sell any other dizzies other than that one. So if you buy a dizzy, they're automatically high power. There's no point in selling the other type. I think Darren's the same as well. Only sell the high power.
I've never bought the standard power one.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. So the 59D, because I've got one in front of me at the moment, that's a Power Spark one. Obviously, that fires a 0.8 ohm coil as well, but that was made like that from original. But the later Power Spark dizzies that you can now buy, or you can buy a standard power and a high power one. Always buy the high power one, and then you can fire a 0.8 ohm coil like a 65D. So effectively, there's no difference between one of these and the Metro electronic type.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that if you need to have an original looking distributor like a 25D or 45D, you can still get them in high power versions as well.
Yeah. Scott J, I did ask about piston cushion if that helps. What you need to do is stick a feeler blade under the piston when the engine's off and measure the gap, because it should sit above the jet by 8 to 12 thou is the factory setting. If it's outside of that, then that may be not helping your situation.
Yeah, because if the piston cushion's gone, that jet area just disappears completely and it chokes the engine out.
Yeah. Dean Cook, any possibility of a video on setting up even drop rates on twin carbs? No. I don't give all my secrets away. Chopper Patrick, is the advice given in the SU Carburetor high performance manual valid? I don't know what the advice is, so I can't answer that. Gomer Pole, have you guys ever set up a camera on the carb while driving to check the piston movement under load? No, I use a rolling road for that. But there are other ways of doing it, which I won't talk about here. Darren knows what I mean because he's done my training.
Yeah.
Scott J, how do you address that? The piston cushion. Okay, so that's where the bottom of the carburetor piston. I might have one here. Excuse me while I rummage under my bench. I've got a very dirty one. Right. Just get a screwdriver. Piston cushion. Okay. So that needs to be drilled out, and it needs to be very carefully drilled out, because if you open the hole up that it sits in, the new one won't go in, so it will just fall out. So you carefully drill that out, then you press in a new one, and then the new one will be too long. So then you need to put the piston in a lathe or a milling machine and mill it off so you get the appropriate height above the bottom of the piston. And if you've got machines, it's very easy. It takes me probably 3 minutes to change one. Doesn't take long.
But in eternity, if you don't have the equipment.
Yeah, if you don't have the equipment, I don't think you can file them. The file just slides over the top.
Yeah, it's a hard plastic.
Yeah, it's a very hard plastic. So what you need to do is have a lathe, really. I mean, that's the easiest way for most people. Okay, Clint. Hi, Clint. How you doing? When modifying a cylinder head, is there any benefit to square porting on a 940 head? No. All I do is I square up the ports, but that's only because I like them to be nice. All right. There's no airflow benefit. The most, for a home porter, the hardest bit to do is the valve seats, because you need a multi-angle seat and they need to be blended, right? And then you need the combustion chambers done. These are all the hard things to do at home. Everybody thinks that hogging out the valve guides and opening up the chambers is where all the flow is. No. Most of the flow gains are around the valve head itself, and into the throat and around the seat. All right. Yeah, of course, high flow numbers, you will need to open the ports up slightly, but for what you want to do, most of the in fact, having done experiments on this, I can tell you that half the flow gains to be had on a cylinder head are just in the valve seat and around the chamber.
Yeah, it's amazing how much is just there.
Yeah. So I've put cylinder heads on engines, and funnily enough, if you do a good valve job, don't touch the port at all, anywhere, even the exhaust. Don't port any of it. Just do a multi-angle seat on the inlet and exhaust, and then reshape the chamber, and the head will flow about half as much as a fully ported, Carlos Fandango, really mega expensive head. Miles, is it worth rebuilding a Toyota Tacoma V6 engine? The truck is in great condition. Can't answer that question. Depends on how much it's going to cost and how long you're going to keep it for. You're going to keep the truck and it's in good condition, and it's going to cost you thousands to build an engine like that. It's up to you. Dean Cook, are twin carb drop rates part of your tuning course? No.
They're part of the training course.
Yeah, they're not. Well, not twin carbs. Twin carbs are not. But the difference is, Dean, is once you've done my training, as all the people that have done my training, I don't train people on my training course to tune twin carbs, because you don't need training for twin carbs. Once you've done the single, there's just a conversation needed after the training's been done, and then you can go on and do twin carbs. You have to learn to walk before you can run. And Darren knows that because he's done the training.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I did a set of twins until I'd done at least 10 single carbs. And then I was like, okay, now that I got that under my belt, let me do a twin. It's a totally different beast. But what helps is having it all fresh and nice. So if you're trying to set up a set of twins that are worn out, you forget it.
Yeah.
Just
And
start over.
that's the bit that people, the biggest issue people have is, I've got these old set of twins. Stop. First job, rebuild them. Then you can set them up.
Yeah, and then it'd be
Martin,
nice.
sorry, carry on. You were saying, Darren?
Oh, I said then it'd be nice. Then you get the good acceleration and yeah, be great.
Yeah, and you get the nice running characteristics and all the rest of it, and they don't keep stalling and all the rest of it. Okay, so Martin Haslam, hi AC and Darren, love the vids. I have a standard 9 and 8 with electronic ignition, AccuSpark, Haines states timing at 1500 RPM without vacuum, 10 degrees. Would you set it at that or at idle 900-ish? Cheers. No, I wouldn't set it anywhere like that. What I would do is measure the advance curve that's actually in the distributor and then try and time it to give around 28 to 30 degrees, full advance. But obviously, if there's insufficient advance curve and that means that you've got to leave it at 20 degrees at idle, then that's not ideal. So I don't do, what you're asking is a wrong question. And it's not your fault, Martin. It's because people like yourself don't understand how you set the timing. Okay. So how you set the timing is based on what the advance curve is delivering in the engine. So in order to answer your question, if you was to measure your advance curve and tell me the figures, then I could tell you what to set it at.
Yeah, I had a tune just before Christmas, and I fully expected to have to replace the distributor on the car. But once I got down there, I measured it and I went, nope, this is good. I was surprised, but it gave the right figures that I was expecting to have for a standard distributor. I could have swapped it for one I had curved to get a bit more because I'm at altitude, but I pretty much just left it alone because, save a few bucks for the customer and it wasn't necessary. But you got to be able to measure the whole curve.
Yeah. And that's the bit that people need to. So the best thing to do about timing, right? If anyone is timing their engine, is not look in the book. Okay, the book setting isn't anything to do with performance. All right, so performance timing an engine is throw the book in the bin. Yeah, the way you do it is you need to measure the advance that it's already got or what's there currently, and then you can make a decision on what the timing needs to be set at with the current dizzy you've got. And in a lot of cases, the current dizzy is not sufficient, so you have to change it. Okay, Dave Huddleston, I have swapped an early HS2 carb for one with an engine breather port. Can I still use the same needle? Wondered if it would affect the airflow. It does affect the airflow, but generally speaking, your needle will probably be fine. But what you might need to do is to just adjust the idle mix. But if you install a wideband gauge, of course, you'd know that.
It also depends if you have the correct restriction at the breather cap. Because if you have a giant hole in your oil filter breather, it'll just act as a giant air leak. That was the problem with one of the single point cars, that the seal was toast, and so it just had this enormous vacuum leak it couldn't account for, and it just ran terribly because of it. So you got to make sure all the equipment's been put on properly, and it's not providing too much airflow through the engine. There is supposed to be a restriction there because it wants to create a vacuum in the block to pull all those fumes out.
Scott J, thanks guys, I'll look into it. Non-technical question. What was your favourite, not necessarily best, built mini engine to drive? Displacement, cam, carbs, etc. Well, you go first, Darren.
Surprisingly enough, it was actually a supercharged build. The fueling, it was getting too much fueling, but it just had a very nice torque curve, and a 5-speed gearbox under it, so it was comfortable on the highway. I don't remember what the cam was. It came to me as just sort of a pre-built engine, not with the head. I put the head on, but it was just sort of like a pre-assembled thing I put together for a customer, and that was generally a really nice, pleasant driving car. Once I had worked out all the flaws of the kit, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was running a Weber, but I dyno tuned it. It did 100 horsepower, but it was just getting too much fuel. And again,
Yeah.
I'm at high altitude, so it was just set up that way. But it probably would have done a little bit better with good fueling. But I think that one was one of the nicer ones to just drive. Just overall, just nice because of the torque.
Yeah. So I like torquey engines. So something like a 1330 or a 1360 or a 1380 with my RT cam. So all done by 5,000 RPM. Usually that sort of specs anywhere between 86 to 90, just shy of 90 horsepower at about 92 foot-pounds of torque. And it's all there, from 1200 RPM. So you can just push your foot into the floor, and your ass goes in the seat and stays there till you hit 5,000 RPM. Yeah. So I don't like fussy engines. I like engines that you just get in, turn the key, and go, and they're also efficient. So run it with a nice high final drive. She'll do 50 to the gallon, no problem.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing probably a rebuild on the Elf motor, and that's kind of what I'll do with it. I'm not sure if it's going to be a 1275 or a 998 build because I have both
Yeah.
engines available, but that's how I would build it for that car.
Yeah.
That car's a little bit heavier than a standard car, so it does need a little bit extra effort to go around.
Twin carbs are nice. So twin carbs on that spec will work well, but it's whether you can afford it or not. You have to remember, as soon as you talk twins, it's the twin tax.
Yeah,
and
I think
the
I
twin
run
tax basically
48.
means 3 times the price of a single.
Yeah, because you got to get them balanced mechanically,
set up,
and then
and
you can work on the fueling.
Okay, Michael Brickles. Hi, I've got a question for you. I have an A Series 1275 engine with 40 thou pistons and a Metro turbo head and cam, 45D dizzy, and twin SU 44s off an MG. Is this a good idea? Bit big carbs. You don't need two 44s. Yes, they can be made to work, but I'd only be putting those on engines over 100 horsepower. Yeah. So you only need, if you're going to go twins on that spec, then I'll be putting twin 1.5 on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that Cooper S I did at 38s, twin 38s. It ran really well.
Oh, Stefan Mini Cooper, can you explain what the little spring on the needle does? We had this last time, didn't we? Do you want to answer that, Darren?
It provides the bias that they built into the system, and I always assumed that it was for avoiding assembly time and just tedium having to set the carburetors. But we had a gentleman commenting on it who worked with SU, and he said it was actually to create a better fuel atomization because the pattern coming out of the jet was curved instead of a whatever it was before.
See, I don't believe that. I believe, let me clarify that. I believe he's right, but what I mean is, I think they did that first to make it cheaper to build. That's why you would make that change. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what made sense to me. It just seems
That
like you
makes
spend so
sense.
much time
But
fussing
what
with the
they
jet.
probably found is like he said, they probably noticed that there was a benefit, in terms of the fuel atomization. So yeah, I'm not disputing what he said, because I can see that there is potential there to change the shape of the way the fuel's pulled off the jet. So, but in reality, it aids assembly. So if you're building these in mass production, you don't want to be paying people to sit there and have to center every jet. That's ridiculous. So you engineer that out, and that's what the bias spring needle does.
Yeah, because it all takes is one person with the wrench on the wrong jam nut to turn the jet, and then all of a sudden the needle binds up, and that's the end of it. Then you got to take the carb off and recentralize the whole thing.
Yeah. When you're putting these things together, if someone has to spend 10 seconds centering it, no, not at if it's costing you 50 or 60 pound an hour to have that person on the line, no. You engineer that out.
Yep.
Okay, JG, the nut on the needle that you adjust for the CO2 reading, I had to turn mine to achieve 3.5% pass for the MOT. It was running at 6.8. Is it a gradual adjustment or is it per flat turn on the nut? It's a gradual adjustment. So you don't have to have it. We always talk about flats, but that's because there's 6 flats, so you can count where you are. That's why we talk about flats, so you know where you are and you can go back to it. But in terms of the screw, it can sit anywhere as long as you just turn it until you get the right reading. Now, the point is, you might find it doesn't drive as nicely after you've turned it down. And the reason for that, if that is the case, is because it needs proper tuning.
Some carbs have that little tab on the nut, the tab that prevents you from rotating it around and around and around. I assume that was something that they put on there for people to make adjustments for summer versus winter, because it really limits you to, I don't know, half a turn of the whole nut itself, or maybe just 2 flats. But I often wonder if that was their thought on that little piece as well. I don't know. But without having the original engineers around here, we're just kind of guessing at this point.
Seaman Sam, when's your next collab with Thomas Classic and Modern? I could contact him and get one set up. It's not a problem. Well, I've just been lazy and haven't done it.
He's also really busy doing his shop kind of rearranging project.
Yeah. He is very busy at the moment, so I'll have a word with him and see when he wants to come on. We can sort that out again.
Yeah, we figured out that the 3 of us can't be on a live stream together at the same time. The live stream only does 2 people simultaneously.
Yeah.
So if the 3 of us wanted to be in it, we'd have to come in from a different stream and then join up together on this one. So using the YouTube live stream system, you can only do 2 people at a time.
Yeah. So just go to the next question there. The M5 module replaces the Power Spark electronic ignition kit. No, you have to replace the whole dizzy. Okay. So if you're talking about one of these kit modules that you just bolt in, don't like them, right? Because hang on, I'm getting all confused here. There we go. I don't think, that's a Power Spark module. All right. So that's the power. I don't like these. Again, they use the plastic collars. So I don't actually sell these. So not recommended. What I do is I sell complete new distributors using the high power system that have metal components, all right, that don't move and rattle around. So if you've got one of those kits, carry on using it for now, but think about upgrading to a complete new dizzy. One for you. Sounds like an injection. Yeah, I replaced the PCM relay and now my car won't start. Grimy 90s. Okay, what car was it?
Yeah, I had an MPI car that a stereo shop had tapped into the fuel supply line to run the amp in the back of the trunk, and it shorted the connection at the module. And so they just did a bunch of, bad wiring to bypass the whole system to manually run the pump all the time. And so I dutifully fixed everything in the car to make it run off of the computer as it was designed. But once I did that, then I found that one of the pins had been overheated, so I had bad contact on the module. And that was kind of a fun one to try to diagnose because it was so intermittent and it was really temperature sensitive in the engine bay as well. But yeah, we without knowing what the car you're talking about, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But the old one back on.
Dave Huddleston, thanks guys. Yeah, no problem, Dave. Dan Hardy, evening gents. Where can I purchase a set of your 1.28 rocker arms? 1.28s, the only place you can get them from is Ross Thomas at Thomas Classic and Modern. He might not have any spare sets though, because we've just come to the end of production. So we're not actually going to make any more just yet. And the reason for that is because no one's buying my 1.3 arms. So if I don't make any 1.3 arms, I don't make any 1.28s. So we're going to look at using brand new arms and converting them into 1.28s without the bushing. The problem is the 1.3s cost a lot of money to make because they need bushing, they need the adjuster doing, they also need the tip reprofile. That's 3 things you've got to do on a rocker, and you know it's expensive. So yeah, Darren's
I
got
gotta
set.
say here.
Yeah. Well, you've got the 1.3, the bush ones.
Yeah.
This guy's talking about the 1.28 ones without the bushes in. So at the moment, Dan, you can ask Ross, but he might politely tell you no. They don't come as an assembly; they just come as rockers with nothing in. So you put your own adjusters in them, and away you go.
Yeah, that set I have as a set from Keith.
Yeah. Darren Robert Shaw, when testing my advanced curve, I struggle at 4,000 revs as the idle screw bottoms out at 3.5. Yeah. Should I be able to get to 4,000 with the screw alone? Not necessarily. My tip is don't use the screw. Just put a screwdriver into the throttle link and push the throttle open and hold it with your fingers. And then you can go right up to 5,000 RPM, no problem.
Yep, that's what I do as well.
Scott J, where can I order the cushion piece if I need it? Because it's not listed in the catalogue. I can't remember if I don't think it is listed in the catalogue. The best thing to do is to phone them up and ask for a piston pin cushion. Don't know. Martin Haslam, cheers for that. I had to return my new 5568A as advance on it didn't work. Well, not everything's perfect. When I get the new one, I'll measure it as best I can. The SP8000i was no good. Well, I tested one and it wasn't any good either. Before your review, yeah, fair enough.
I do want to point out that you can test high RPM advanced timing with a standard strobe. You just need to put another paint mark on either your flywheel or your damper, so you can figure out where you are.
That's only assuming that the timing light actually works.
Yeah, at high RPM as well.
High RPM, because a lot of people are having problems with, and this is what I found is even Innova's own product, the lower quality one I tried, wouldn't pick up RPM. You know, would stop flashing properly.
Yeah, the 33 whatever series, the black one, all black. I noticed that one as well because I had to fix an older 5568. I had the 3568, I think is what it is, and it has totally different circuitry inside of it. I was thinking I could maybe steal some parts and fix the one I wanted to have working, but it was so different internally that I was very surprised. Fortunately, I was able to fix the old one with a new capacitor, but I've had good luck with them so far, including partially melting one.
King of the West Midlands, A series is no good with a turbo. Not in my experience. They're fantastic engines. It's just how you use it. Mini J, evening both. Can I ask what effect taking the exhaust gas analysis goes after the catalyst instead of before? Is it possible to set initial CO with a meter up the exhaust on a catalyzed Mini? No, because the problem is if you put the probe up the back, the catalyst is already chewing up all the carbon monoxide. All right, so you need to take the reading before the cat. That's why those cars also had a port on from the factory so that they could do that. You know, it's like everything. What you're trying to do is irrelevant. Just put a wideband on it. It solves all those problems.
Yeah. I think Dean was telling me about there's a new version of the Bosch sensor that is apparently faster than the LSU 4.9. We don't really need that kind of response speed. I think the 4.9 is just a fast enough as it is.
Yeah.
But apparently there's some new version of it out there.
Yeah.
Either way, the key is the wideband. You got to get the wideband.
JG, cool, thank you. I've contacted you tonight to book a tune-in for my Lander. Yes, you have. I've talked to a guy up in Doncaster regarding a 2.8 litre SU equipped Land Rover, I do believe. So I will look to sort that out in due course. Don Hardy, okay, maybe I'll go for the 1.3 rockers if these are available. I've got none in stock. Sorry. So if you want 1.3 rockers, currently go and see Keith Carver. They're on his website and buy a set of his. I'm staying clear of the roller tips after the last couple of Ross videos. Yep.
Yep. I'm going to say here that's also just as bad. So not going back on.
Roller rockers are absolutely fine, but they're service items. Just keep fitting new ones when they wear out. Clint Ford, just been given a gold sports core for electronic ignition. How do I test if it's suitable for my 65D? Very easy test. You need to do a resistance test across the two terminals. Check to test the primary resistance. If you look at my videos where I talk about coils and ignition systems, it shows you how to do that test.
Yeah, it should be 0.8 ohms or less if it's going to be used on 65D.
Don Hardy, if you only sell the arms, would you recommend the mini spares? I sell the mini spares shaft with my bushed 1.3 rockers, the thick wall one.
Yeah.
Scott J, am I going in the right direction with this HS6 1098 with Metro cam, ported 202 head with bigger intake valves, 20 over, balanced crank, proper headers, etc.? Can't afford an HIF 44 yet. HS6 is fine. That'll haul ass, that little thing, if you get it working properly. Get your compression right. Don't overdo it. So none of this 10.5 to 1 bollocks. Get it lower. 9.8, 9.85. It'll rip. Tim's Mini Garage. Twins versus a bigger single. Why did twins give better response? I've been thinking about it wouldn't both setups would need to rise at the same rate to give proper fueling, or is there something else? Okay, so we just need to go a little bit of theory here. So the reason why the throttle response is better on twins is because you're generally using carburetors with a smaller bore, so the gas speed is faster through those carburetors. All right, so that's why your throttle response is better. In terms of rising at the same rate, no. If you think about it, the twin carbs are sharing the airflow. So actually, the pistons would need to rise at the same rate, but not at the same rate of a single, because you can present more airflow to the engine for a lower piston height. All right. So the pistons don't have to move to the same height in the same speed. All right. So that's what you need to understand is if you've got a single carb, the piston has to, move the whole way to get whole airflow for 4 cylinders. And some setups require that the piston can't actually move as fast as it needs to in the lower gears, okay? Because the engine can actually accelerate faster than the piston can rise. So the piston holds the engine back. So you don't get that problem with twin carbs if the twin carbs are sized. So if you've got a pair of twin-inch and halves, for example, on a 1275 engine, that thing will absolutely fly in the lower gears because the pistons can present enough airflow even at relatively low lifts, and they can open at a speed which presents enough airflow versus acceleration requirements. So it's not an issue.
Yeah, it's that low speed flow. That's the important part.
Yeah. And obviously the response. Scott J, 9.5 to 1 compression. Perfecto.
Yeah, Scott. The engine I've been working on currently. When I did the pre-check to see where the engine was, I had a difference of 15 thousandths piston to deck height across the motor. So I had some cylinders in this engine were like 10.1, and other ones were like 9.75 from the factory. Of course, it was worn, so I don't know how much of that is just wear and tear, but it was interesting to see the variation in deck heights.
Okay, Bill Beard. If I rebuild my twin HI 44 with a service kit, would it be worth it? No, never rebuild with a service kit. Always rebuild with a full rebuild kit. Service kit should be banned.
Because it doesn't include the shaft bushings.
Doesn't include anything that wears.
Yeah. No shaft, no disc.
Yeah.
Send it to AC. That's
so
my
I would
recommendation.
suggest, Bill, though, if you only need a rebuild, why not just rebuild the right size carbs? We've already said for that spec, they're too big. So if I was you, I'd think about a set of 12.5 really and build those. If you're going to spend the money, it's going to cost you at least, or minimum, it's going to cost you 795 quid to have two carbs rebuilt on their own. So you could either spend that on the HI 44s or spend that on the right size. Martin Haslam, are you up near Nottingham anytime soon? No.
If you get you and a few of your friends together, you can get AC up there.
Yeah. This is what people are always like, oh, are you coming? I don't go anywhere until I get a booking. So, it's not as if I've got right, I'm going to this town, this town, this town. It doesn't work like that. I only go places if I get a booking. So there are many places in the country that I never go to because nobody ever books me. And that's typically up north because it's so expensive in terms of hours and distance, time. You've got an hourly rate like I have, then if you want me to drive 8 hours and it's 75 quid an hour, then you're picking up the tab. That's the problem.
Yeah, or you have to stay overnight if it's further than that.
Yeah. So the way to do it is to arrange to have 3 or 4 cars at your place and then split the cost between all of you. Paul Irving, hi gents, AFR gauges. Should you take any notice of readings that idle on choke? I've only just had it fitted with only one test run so far. Idle on choke is around 12 to 1. Well, it will be, Rich. That's the whole point of choke, right? When you put the choke on, it ball washes the engine, so it will read very rich. The idea is not to use the choke as much as you can. So put the choke in as soon as you possibly can, because that's what the engine wear comes from by running them on choke. People go out in their garages this time of year and run the car up every couple of weeks, and it's like, stop doing that. You're just killing your engine. The best way to have a car in the winter is fuel stabilize it, take the battery off, put it on trickle charge, and do not touch the car until winter's finished.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you have a short drive that you can do, like, why are you just idling it?
Yeah. You're just wearing the engine out. Never do that.
But the stabilizer was the key part of that. You gotta have the stabilizer in the fuel. I even run the stabilizer on the injection cars. There's no point letting them go off. I know that the injection cars have a sealed fuel system, so it's less of a problem. Like the fuel's not vaporizing as quickly as it is in an open system, but it still separates and it'll still cause issues in the tank. And there's no point in letting that happen because it just causes work and undue performance issues.
Dean Cook, what are your thoughts on bottom end enhancements for a 998 1100 block and crank? Well, what are you using it for? No enhancements needed if it's going down the shops. So sorry to be a bit blunt there, Dave, but I do need more information.
I mean, I would always do the center oil pickup, but that's not really an enhancement of the block of the crank.
Yeah. Yeah, Stefan's got the right idea. Don't pull the choke all the way out. That's right. Pull it out. The younger generation who have cars have not grown up with the choke control, so I do have to explain how the choke works in some cases. And I say to people, you only pull the choke full out to start the car. As soon as it's fired, push the choke halfway in, and then push it in as fast as you can get it to go all the way in. And as Stefan said there, you can actually get the car to run on what's called fast idle if the fast idle cam's been set properly on the carburetor, and therefore it won't put any extra fuel in. It'll just hold the revs up, stops it stalling.
Yeah.
Dean Cook.
Yeah, then once you start driving, it'll warm up.
Okay, a good road car. So he's talking about bottom end mods. Well, a good road car, modifications, it's under 6,000 revs. Just balance the bottom end. No, you don't need a center main strap, don't need any of that.
Yeah, get all your thrust clearances set right.
Yeah, just do a nice detailed bottom end. So check all your bearing clearances, size your clearances properly, set your crank end float properly. No problem at all. Make sure you got new set of cam bearings in there and the right camshaft, and you'll have a good build. Nicholas Roy, hello AC and Darren. 2 questions. Which head gasket for a 1300 do you recommend? Heard about Victor Rents from Thomas, and do you know if there is a rebuilt kit for a mechanical fuel pump? Okay, mechanical fuel pump. No, just buy a new genuine SU pump. 135 quid or whatever they are. Don't skimp on a pump. Problems if you do. All right. So just buy a new mechanical pump. Yeah, the one from Thomas Classic and Modern. It was one that I recommended to them, which they now use. Just use it; it works really well. But do the same. Use the sealant as he did on his video. That's how you use those gaskets.
Yeah, yeah, I use the sealant as well. We have a different product over here, but yeah, I've been using it for a while because it's so frustrating to put those engines together and have a minor leak or a weep from the backside of the block and have to take the head off just to fix that. And it's not, it's not a machining issue because typically you get everything machined to a nice high finish, but you've got to get those gaskets in there and they've got to get sealed somehow. And yeah, just use the sealant. Now the early pan stuff was great because it had that sort of black coating that would sort of fuse to the head and seal up any imperfections. But it seems to be struggling lately with their ability to seal.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Now you can also put sealant on top of the pan stuff, but if you're going to put sealant on a gasket, you might also use the Victor Rains versions.
Tim's Mini Garage. Okay, thanks. I currently have an HI44 and an AFR gauge. Good for you. Everybody should have an AFR gauge. So if you haven't got one, fit one. And the mixtures are set as close as I can with an off-the-shelf needle, yellow spring and a BCE needle. If it gives you the right fueling curve, doesn't matter what needle it is, don't care. As long as the fueling curve's right, that's all that matters. It does feel a bit less sharp low down than the previous twin H. Yes, it will. But better up top. The single has been a lot easier to tune though. Yes. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and of course, in AC's videos, he points out you have to start with the spring before you do any of the tuning. So you start with the spring because that's going to control all the variables. Well, some of the variables in the tuning.
So Dean Cook gives us an okay. No problem, Dean. Regarding the suitable mods for the bottom end of the engine, and Nicholas Roy just says, "Yeah, Roger, what we told him regarding head gasket, etc." Paul Irvine, okay, thanks. On the AFR, on the AFR info. It has stabbing in the fuel, good man, stabilizer, and hope to get it booked in the future. It's the GTM. Okay. Nicholas Roy, thanks for the tips, guys. No problem at all. No problem at all. We've got 45 people in the chat, 36 likes. Excellent. Thank you very much. And we've been going just over, or just about the hour. Yeah, just over the hour.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty good so far. But a lot of good question.
Absolutely.
Sounds like people have interesting projects for the new year.
Yeah. Well, it's this time of year where they're tinkering and they're starting to get rid. I mean, I'm already getting contact for tuning, so people are already getting set for the year. Stefan Mini Cooper, on what stage do you decide to go a yellow spring instead of the red spring on a 1275 engine? See, that's a very good question. So technically, what you should do is measure that on dyno or measure it on the road. Okay. But if you're not measuring it on the road, I tend to go. So if I'm doing a static tune and I go out to a car and it's got a standard 1275 engine with a stage 1 kit, then I'll tend to leave the red spring in. If it's got a modified 1275 engine in it with a modified head and a different cam, I'll put the yellow spring in. That's as simple as that. However, I'm not measuring anything and I don't know if it's going to be fully open or not. But that's what I tend to do.
Yeah, there was an S car, not a true S, but someone had built up something that looked like an S, and it had a 44 on it. And I did all the tuning work, and I got to the damper oil, and it really struggled to get the damper oil set up correctly. And I did a bunch of modifications. I got it to work, but I realized I probably should have switched to the yellow spring from the red spring that I had because of just the way that the engine was built. But I did all the other needlework before I did that, and I got to that point. I went, oh, this probably needed a stiffer spring. But
Yeah.
you can get there in the end. It's just it would have been easier to have switched springs if I realized in the beginning.
Yeah,
that I needed more dampening effect.
Because once you've tuned it and you change the spring, you've got to go back and start again.
Yep.
Okay, Scott J. This question for you there, Darren. I think.
Yeah, you can send me a message on Messenger. Also, on my channel, you can send me an email via the channel. I can't type in the chat because I'm currently on the live stream, so you'll have to find my channel and pull up the address there. But either way, I can get or send a message to AC and he can send it to me. Either one.
It'll get there one way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony, hi fellas. What are the symptoms of a vacuum leak from the carb spindle? Well, the biggest one usually is uneven idle, or the ability for the idle not to come back in the same place every time. And the most annoying one is when you pull up at the traffic lights or at a junction, it stalls.
Yep.
The other thing you'll find as well, and this is for the people who, like me, who do tuning, you'll also find you won't be able to get the mixture to run as lean or as clean. It affects the combustion at idle. So you have to use a richer mixture to get the thing to idle smooth. Whereas if you've got a completely sealed throttle shaft, you can turn the mixture right down, even past stoichiometry sometimes, and they'll idle when they've got good throttle shaft seal.
Yeah. The video I posted with the car that got 60 to the gallon, that one had really, really crisp throttle shaft seals. It was an HS4, and I was able to get 105, 104, 105 pretty much consistent at idle. Again, it had a new power spark ignition system, but it just sat there and it didn't budge because it was all fresh and tight and crisp. It was a really, really pleasant car to tune and drive afterwards.
Was that one of my carbs?
No, that was actually one that I did.
Oh,
I know. But I had to go through all of the carb bushings and grade them based on the clearances they would give, and found the two tightest ones and then use those.
Yeah.
So it did take a lot of effort to get there because I couldn't make my own bushings like you can.
Yeah. Hang on. graded. That's the way I do it to get them fitted. So because the tolerances needed are so tight, I grade mine now. And then I've got a bearing for every occasion. And that way I'll guarantee the fit all the time. Stefan Mini Cooper, thanks. I have a yellow spring now, 1293, home ported head, KED 266, cam 1.5 full steel rockers. Sounds perfect to me. I think your sound's gone.
Yeah, we've got that weird 1 hour trip. I'll log back in.
Okay. All right. So while Darren's logging back in, I'll carry on with the questions. You mentioned ball wash. Often, how quick can it happen? Ball wash is something that happens. Are you all right now, Darren?
Yeah, it seemed like, after an hour, YouTube resets something and it causes it to mess up. So we'll just have to remember to do that every single time.
That's all right. Okay, so Bill Beards, you mentioned ball wash often. How quick can this happen? If it's on a new engine, about 20 revolutions, which is the blink of an eye. All right. So ball wash is terrible for a new engine. If it's an old engine, ball wash happens over a period of time. Okay. But it's something you don't want to be doing. Ball wash is not a good thing to be having. Setting a car on choke with the choke out, washing the rings out of it is not a thing you want to be doing. Or even winding the mixture nut in, trying to make the car go properly because you haven't had it tuned properly. So having the car idling and it's just running very, very rich will quickly wash the rings out of it. So
yeah,
when I say quickly, 300-400 miles of doing that will definitely start making the engine smoke if it's rich enough.
Yeah, and if you watch like Ross's videos, he fires them up on a stand because it's a severe problem and he doesn't want to have it an issue when he gets in the car. So he always sets them up and runs them in on a stand that he can monitor the air fuel ratio.
Yeah, so he puts a lambda in the exhaust so he can monitor what's going on and make sure everything's right. And the initial start is always lean.
Yeah. Yeah, and realistically, your break-in period should be fairly lean as well.
Yeah. I actually get called out by people to go and do the initial start. So the first start on the engine and then make sure the fueling's lean. And I set the engine to run at stoichiometry or just a little bit leaner than that, sort of 1.02, 1.05, 1.08, something like that. Just at part throttle. So the engine's always running clean so that the rings get the maximum chance to bed in.
That's also about where peak cylinder pressure is going to be as well. So you get maximum, pressure on the rings as well.
Yeah, agreed. Swarthy, I'm looking at building a 1275 A series. Could be an A+, but unsure. Can you recommend a detailed build series on YouTube or the best literature to refer to through the rebuild? No. Because in my view, none of so there are some good things, but they don't tell you how to do it. Nobody tells you how to do it. The best thing I can recommend is an American book that was made for people building V8 engines, and it's called The Engine Builder's Handbook. It's an excellent book on how to build an engine. It will require you to buy measuring equipment and things like that, but that's what people don't understand. Building an engine requires you to measure and set clearances. If you can't do that, leave it to a professional.
Yeah, look at Ross. He's got 13 engines backed up right now trying to get completed. That's a professional engine builder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of any one specific series that does it thoroughly enough to recommend. I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to hit the highlights on my rebuild that I have to do for this customer. Just because there's so many things that you have to do. It would take hours to film.
Yeah.
On top of the hours it takes to do the build.
Yeah. We're at 53 people, so thank you very much, everybody, for coming to join us. It's much appreciated. 43 likes. If you haven't given us a like, please give us a thumbs up. Swarthy, thanks, guys. Fully understand. Yeah. So I'm not trying to be blunt there. So I'm just trying to be realistic, right? So, the most important thing, what people seem to think that you can take an engine apart, clean it, have some machining done, reassemble it without you just bolt shit on. That's not how you build an engine. All right. The way you build an engine is you check and measure every clearance in the engine, and then you set every clearance to where you want it for the application. Okay. And that's the secret to building a good engine.
Yeah, you want that compression to be where you want it to be. You want each cylinder to have the same amount of compression. You don't want it to be uneven.
You want all the bearing clearances to be where you want for the application, to match the camshaft and the RPM range the engine's building it. I'm not trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be, but if you ask the question about what do I need to do, I'm telling you as an ex-engine builder now, because I don't build them anymore, but I advise other people and other engine builders on what to do when they have problems. So it's not that I don't build them anymore, it's just I've moved on from that, if that makes sense. So I still get consulted on engines, and I consult for other people. I consult for Ross. I consult for other companies which will remain nameless, because I'm sure they won't like it if I start saying things.
Yeah, I don't like it because it just takes too long. Like, it's just in my way. Like, the whole project is in my way, so I can't do anything else while I'm waiting for stuff to get machined or whatnot. So I don't do a lot of them either.
Tony's asked a question. Sorry, I say I've asked this before but lost the answer. What is your O2 meter you use for on the road tuning? Okay, so my actual meter is no longer available. It was a DTEC unit from Australia, so you can't buy mine anymore. All you want is a gauge that people install in their car. Okay. You can have one of those and mount it in a little box, and you can take with you if you're going to go and do some mobile work. That's all you need. And I think a lot of all the people that I've trained to do tuning, that's all they use.
Yeah, off the shelf. You can get replacement parts easy. The key is having a fairly long cable from the sensor to the gauge, so you can put the gauge wherever you need to put it to be able to see it.
Scott J's just backing us up there. What I said, Swarthy, I agree with them. I spent many hours consulting with an engine builder near me. Be prepared to go the extra mile and find a very good machine shop near you. Trust, verify all measurements.
Yeah.
So there sounds like the voice of experience.
I'm kind of excited to get this engine built and back in the car, because very rarely do you find a car that's been gone through with a really nice interior and a paint job and the mechanicals and the engine. Usually one of those is missing in every build for cost reasons. And this guy's owned it for a long enough time where he's managed to do everything, and now the engine's finally had it. So he's finally getting an engine rebuild.
Okay. Yeah. So Swarthy, there's brilliant. Thanks. That's what I want to achieve, a proper build. Appreciate the advice. No problem. The thing is, Swarthy, these things aren't cheap, right? You can't cut corners. I have to deal with a lot of people who, I've rebuilt the engine. You turn up and it's like, no, what did you do? You painted it and put some gaskets on. That's not a rebuild. Yeah.
That's a spray and pray.
That's, a rebuild is remachining, replacing worn components, many thousands of pounds, right? Not, regasketing, put some shiny rocker covers on and maybe fit a new clutch. That's not a rebuild.
Yeah, I think the machine shop bill for this engine is going to be about $2,000.
Yeah,
when it's all said and done.
And that's just machine work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you put the parts in.
No parts. Scott J there. Machine shop is key. Yeah, absolutely. Question for you there, Darren. Stefan, Mini Cooper. What's your next plan on your Elf?
Well, the next plan is to get it into the garage, but as I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of engine build work lined up, so it may not be in the garage until early spring. But I'm doing what I can to sort of make it at least more usable in the meantime. So I've got some interior projects to tidy up some of the wiring, took the stereo out, but realistically, it needs to have a mechanical restoration. So I've got subframes on order. Basically, I have a pallet worth of stuff that needs to be shipped in January. The rear subframe's trashed, so it's going to get mechanically restored, and then I need to decide what I'm going to do with the bodywork and things like that, because it is fairly rusty underneath that purple shiny paint. So it may go towards a full restoration. Not sure exactly, but it's just going to be one of those projects that takes a back burner to all my other regular repair and service work that I need to do.
Scott J continues with his engine building advice there for Swarthy. Also prepared to spend at least 40% extra in your budget on it too. Yeah, because you got a budget for things that you don't know about until you get there.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
things like when you start machining the block and then they uncover porosity in the cylinder walls. Now you've got to pay another 500 quid to have it lined. Yeah. So, and then you got the pistons you've already bought are wrong, so you got to send them back and get a different size and all the rest of it. This is all things that you can get into. All right, you got to go with the flow.
Yeah, I think there was a video you did with a cylinder head rebuild, and you were cutting the seat, and you ran into a small imperfection, so you had to cut the seat a little bit further. And so that one cylinder had slightly different compression because the valve had to go slightly further in because of the head.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
Perfect
the problem. You're dealing with old castings that are mass produced. They're not perfect. They were only ever produced to the lowest possible cost.
Yeah.
Scott J. Sorry, yeah. Scott J continues. One thing I did I haven't seen elsewhere is I set my cam and crank end float to the exact same. You haven't seen it elsewhere, but that's how I used to do it, Scott. That's so that the two stay when they're moving in and out, they stay as closely in line as you possibly can. And you'll find that's how Ross does his as well, because that's how I showed him to do his. Yeah, he's talking about ball joint shims are exactly the same size as cam plate thrust shims. That's how he did it. Yeah, I do it by machining the sprocket. Swarthy, cheers, Scott, and thanks again to you both for a detailed response. No problem. And thanks, Scott, for chiming in with your experience. It's not just us that do the talking. Other people on this chat have got experience as well. So you'll only get grumped at by me if you're completely wrong.
But that's just one of those little details that, again, doesn't get talked about because it's just one of those things you learn to do, and it just becomes second nature at some point. So you never even think about filming it because you just don't remember to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes trying to find a full build series difficult, because there's a million different things that people do, and trying to capture it all is very difficult or too tedious.
I can recommend the Engine Builder's Handbook. Yes, it is for V8s, but the point is, it goes through all the processes that you should do on your A series. So, I recommend people go and get a copy of that book and have a good read. No problem, Scott.
Also, you had one of your SU tuning videos you put out recently. You talked about the SU needle book, and that's another great one for people to have. They should understand that one as well if they're going to do any tuning work or service work. Yeah.
Right. And just everybody watching, no, we didn't set this up. Right. We just happened to have these here. Right. This is the one I use on the road tuning, and as you can see, it's well used. Right. But we have these here because this is what we do. All right. And, you know, people, you know, they want to know stuff, right? Well, you need to buy books and get information. And that's why I put that information out in those videos. And the reason for doing that 4-part video on SU carbs is because over the last 3 years, and it's getting worse, is people clearly have no idea what they're dealing with a carburetor, especially an SU. And there's so many old wives' tales and, oh, my granddad did this, and oh, I've always done it like that. And it's all wrong. And that's why I put the videos out to try and to explain people that they're going down you know, we seem to be having a whole view of people that think they can tune an SU without any means of measuring anything. You know, just turn a screw or fiddle with stuff and it'll be fine. No. If you hear people talking about that, they have no clue what they're talking about. I don't care if it's professionals or anything, they have no clue. All right. So if you're at a mini show and you hear people talking about stuff, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. Using your ear to do stuff typically isn't accurate enough.
Yeah. And I even put in my demonstration videos when I'm at Riviera runs, like, listen, yeah, sounds good, doesn't it? It's tearing itself a new one because you can't tell by listening. That's the point.
Yeah, you got to measure. Yeah, that's why I appreciated it. You know, you pointing out this book and the usefulness of this book. Certainly will help a lot of people, I think, in their journeys of tuning, especially if they're not near either one of us. Yeah, they need to be very familiar with this one.
My main idea for using that was a to, you know, enlighten people that this book's available, but also when I learned about SUs and I taught myself about tuning, I only ever read this book for the needles in it, and it was only fairly recently that I reread the book and then went and then realised that information was in there. It's just that I overlooked it. And it's because I didn't understand. Right. But now I do, because I've spent a whole career doing it and I read the book and go, oh, the information's in there. That's what I said. Everything you need to know is in there. The only thing you won't find in there is what needle station responds to which RPM point. And unfortunately, that's not something that you will find out by me telling you. It's done by experimentation.
And it's also going to change in time as our fuels change and other characteristics of the way the engine's running. It's going to change.
Different size engines have different needles. It's all different for every single application, and that's the problem. All right. Okay, so while we rant on about stuff, Matthew, where should I fit my wideband sensor? In accordance with the instructions that are supplied with your kit.
Yeah, mine's about at the base of the headers, right before it makes the turn to go to the back of the car. It needs to be someplace where you can get access to it, because you do have to take it out and clean it every now and then. I think it talks about so many miles. It's like either once a year you got to take it out, or depending on the miles you drive, but you do need to take it out and give it a clean and recalibrate it, because it will get clogged up just from the fact that it's not a fuel injected engine. So just be prepared to get to it at some time every now and then. But yeah, you can't have it right against the head. It's too hot. It's got to be a certain distance away from the head. And when you get a new kit, it'll tell you the distance, but generally that bend right before it goes back to the car tailpipe, that's where I put it. Plus, it's the only place I can find where there's enough space.
Yep. And Scott's still giving more advice. Get Keith Carr's lifters. Yeah, because he reprofiles his own cam followers and he puts the proper radius on the end. Another good bit of advice. Tony has added there, my dad worked as an engineer at Rust and Diesels for 50 years and all of this is second nature for him. We've lost a whole generation of knowledge. Thanks to the likes of you guys, we've got some hope. Yeah, well, the old boys were good, and that's because they've done it all their lives. I've done it most of my life, which is why I've got a reputation now, because I know what I'm doing. But the difference is what I've done is I've applied a bit of science to it. And one of the things I always do is I don't do the same thing all the time. So I'm continuously trying new things. So one thing, I'll give you an example of that. So one thing I'm going to try for this season is I'm going to have some different oils with me, and I'm going to try some different oils and see how I get on with those. And that's an example of continuous improvement. If you do a job and you're good at it, well, you get good by continually improving. So I don't stay sat in one place all the time. What I look to do is try and constantly improve things to make things better. So that's what I'm going to be doing this year, and look to see if I can improve my service by looking at different oils. But I won't say any more about that until I've got some results.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that this technology can still teach us new things, despite it being, so old, right? The design of the SU is a very old design, but it still continues to provide new and interesting challenges.
Yeah. So one of the things I get with SUs is you're doing it all wrong. You don't know what you're doing. You can't do it like that. Well, you can, and that's because I've gone out of my way to develop a way of doing it, right? And now I train other people on that. And then once you've been trained, you can see how it works and why it works. So just because something hasn't been done a particular way doesn't mean to say that it's not right. It's just it hasn't been done that way before. So just because something's old doesn't mean to say you've got to do things all the same way. All right. So you can change and do things differently.
Yeah, and that's why you need to have the wideband sensor, because
Yeah.
it gives you a way of understanding what the car is doing in a real world environment. I mean, you could always just go to a dyno and then spend hours there, but if you put it in your car, you can watch it while you're driving. You can see the seasonal changes. It's a fantastic tuning aid, and just general, health of the car too.
Chopper Patrick, what are you cleaning the wideband sensor with? Blowtorch.
Yep, it's gonna get hot. It's designed to get hot.
Yeah, get it cherry red at the end. That cleans it.
Yeah, yeah. I clean mine about every second or third car that I tune. Sometimes, if it's just a really sooty car, I've got to do it right after I've done the tuning because it just gets so dirty. But that's a sensor at the back of the car. The one
Yeah,
at the header stays cleaner for a longer period of time, but it still gets dirty.
yeah. Stefan Mini Cooper, is this guy both your full-time job? Well, I spend a lot of time doing car stuff, but no, it's not a full-time job. But I'm not going to discuss what I do. So I'll move on. I'll let you
It's
answer
all I
that one
do.
in a minute, Darren.
It's all I do.
It's all Darren does. So he does cars all the time. Scott J. Dodd. For oils, I've found that there is air compressor oils. Yeah, ISO 46, ISO 68 are kind of in the realm of 20 weight, but the 46 is thinner. Something to try. Have you heard of them? Yes, I have, but I'm going a slightly different route. But I will let everybody know once I've worked it all out. I'm trying to improve the oil situation, and I'll be informing SU themselves of my outcome. But I've got to do it yet, so I'm not going to comment any more on it because there's nothing to say other than I'm going to try some different oils. Demi-Quad FPV, talking of the oils, do you think multigrade is good given the SU oil is single grade? How is multigrade better? Or is it more than temperature doesn't vary too much in the dash pot? Again, I'm going to try different oils and I'll let you know.
Yeah. So I do want to point out that there was a dash pot heater available for very cold climates. Like the Canadian market had a dash pot heater.
Yeah.
The northern part of Europe, they had heaters available. So clearly there was a need to try and warm up that oil when it was new.
Yeah.
And it still applies. If it's way too thick because it's way too cold, then it's going to be problematic until it warms up.
Okay, so we got 42 in the chat room. If any of you haven't given us a thumbs up, please do so. That's much appreciated. I will add to the last question there about demi-quads asking about oils. I've used the current oils I use. I was in the video. So ATF 2050, 1040 and 530, and I also have some Jack oil in there as well. All those oils have worked very well for me for all my life. Okay. And I've tried various different grades, and they're the ones that I've decided to carry with me. So what I'm now doing is looking at to see if there's any other grades that I need to carry and whether they offer me any benefits or not. And I'll also be informing all the guys that I've trained, so they'll all get the benefits of that information as well. So if you invest in training with me, you will get updates of information as I learn new things. So you don't just, it's not one and done. It's one, join the club, and you get the benefit of my latest thinking.
He thinks a lot.
Sometimes too much. Yeah.
Well, when you're dealing with so many cars a year that, you've got way more access and can start tweaking things, whereas I might not see more than 30 cars this year or next year, if that. So, we depend on people who have a high volume of cars.
Yeah. So I will be tuning at the International Mini Meet this year, and you'll see me go through a lot of cars. So it's just experiences like that I learn from. So I still learn, when I'm out tuning, there's always something new to learn or something different to experience. So, I'm starting to get more bookings for different cars now, Land Rovers and, different Austins and things like that. And obviously you've seen the uptake into metros and various bits and pieces. So, we're moving on, which is good.
You did have a Mustang last year.
I did a Mustang as well, yeah. But I only did that Mustang because I'd already tuned that guy's Mini. And he knew that I knew about carburation. So he said, you must be able to sort my Mustang out. And I was able to make that much better. So it was a typical, I hate to say this, Darren, but it was a typical American car. Open the throttle and it just hosed the fuel in. There was very little control over the lots. So we had to shut the sluice gates on that one, and I literally, I literally turned the pump off. I literally shut it off, so it wasn't hardly doing anything. So it actually, when you open the throttle, it went slightly lean. But he told me, he said it runs much better, and it's using way less fuel. And he was using that car in a city environment, so it was always on and off the throttle around town. So it was literally hosing fuel through it. So by cutting the fuel out of that Mustang, it made it a lot miles better and much better on fuel, and it would have been better for everybody's lungs as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I can always tell when a car isn't tuned. Just as soon as I get close to it, I can go, "Oh, I can smell it." I'm just like, "Nope, this needs to stop."
Yeah. So as soon as you push the throttle on that, we were seeing it was 0.6.
Oh, jeez.
It was in the 0.6s. So, funny enough, at any steady state, it was a nice 0.92 on the money everywhere, right? But as soon as you push the 0.6 every time, any movement of the pedal was 0.6. Yeah. So I was able to adjust the accelerator pump with and you bend a lever on that. So I bent the lever right back to shut it off, and it leaned it right out perfectly.
Nice. Yeah, and that's the point about the knowledge that we have. It's like it applies to anything that runs a carburetor.
Yeah.
And honestly, I still use my tuning kit to measure the fuel injection cars to make sure that they're running cleanly before I send them out the door, because the fuel injecting cars, they don't tell you enough information about how it's running. They barely have any information about the sensors themselves, never mind error codes. So I always use my tuning kit to check that they are running as clean as they can run before anything else happens.
And that's the beauty about a wideband sensor, is you can shove it up the tailpipe of an injected car, and the whole world opens to understanding what's going on, which is really good.
And you can see how your tuning is related to an injection car as well. We had a live stream a few weeks ago, or a number of months ago, where I had an injection car. I pulled the plugs out of my carbureted car, and they were basically the same color because the two cars were running basically the same fueling.
Yeah, that was a lovely demonstration. I remember that one. It's like smug mode enabled. Yeah, How good's your SU? As good as digital electronic fuel injection?
Yeah, the one benefit is that I could control the timing, so I could get a little bit more performance out of it. But yeah, that was a good live stream.
Tony's asking you what the mini scene's like in the States.
Well, the problem with the mini scene in the States is that the United States is massive. You're talking thousands of miles to get from one coast to the other. So typically you have clusters of minis around major metropolitan areas because in the middle of the country, there's nothing around there except corn. So you'll find a lot of stuff all on the eastern seaboard, and there seems to be more on the west coast, California particularly, Washington, Oregon. Canadians have a very large contingency around Victoria, the island. So we had a national meet earlier this year. I think there's about 150 cars, but again, given the distances, some people just don't want to travel in the middle of the summer to get across the country to do them. But yeah, I think there's a lot of cars out here. They're just locally clustered around places. Texas has quite a bit. Florida has a tremendous amount because of the weather. So yeah, it's a pretty big scene. I'm out here in the middle of the country, so I'm kind of an anomaly. There's a place down in Arizona that does mini work as well. I think he's probably the closest to me. So realistically, the Mini and the rest of the English cars, the Triumphs, the Spitfires, the Jags, like all that stuff kind of gets lumped together because they're all sort of the same, but they're slightly different in terms of shape. That's how they get treated out here. So we kind of have to do everything we can on all the cars because there's no one else around. But to Scott's question, I think the Mini is 7, because Mini purchased 7, and then they had to go into bankruptcy. I think that they're just filing bankruptcy to restructure the company because of the debt. They had a massive amount of debt owed to suppliers, and everything just slowed down dramatically for the new owners. So they'll come back out of bankruptcy just fine. It's I'd say standard American practice.
It's a restructuring by the sounds of it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just restructuring the debt. I don't think it's that complicated. I typically don't get anything from them because I just get it straight from Europe directly. I get better pricing, and shipping is about the same amount of time anyway. So to me, it doesn't matter. But yeah, some people use them exclusively, and then suddenly ran into issues because they couldn't get their parts.
Yeah.
And there's just a big problem with them. But they're working on it. I just don't follow their news because I don't care. But they do. They did quite a bit of engine work. They do build engines. 7 before they got purchased by Mini did their own engine building. Yeah, I used to know those guys really well. They did great stuff. They were my go-to for many years for parts before I started getting them directly from England.
Okay.
And other sources.
Okay, so Callum Watson, how do we book a tune at the show with you, IMM or Riviera Run? Join the queue. No booking, just join the queue. Simple as that.
Yeah, that'd be fun to watch. AC rapidly firing needles.
I think the people seem to think if you can book. The trouble is you can't book me at a show because I don't know how long each tune's going to take because every car's different. So if I had booked slots, it wouldn't work. The only show I do book slots in is a show, and the typical one is the second day of the Isle of Wight West Country Mini Adventure. Is the show closes effectively early on the Sunday, and if I don't have enough custom, it doesn't make money. So I have to book the cars in to make sure I've got the business for the second day, but I have to charge more for them because I'm doing less cars. So that's where there's a booking. But when there's at the Riviera Run, I can't do all the cars in the queue. So I do it for this year I did it for 3 days. Yeah. And I ran out of cars at the end of the 3rd day. Yeah. So, you just have to join the queue and wait, unfortunately. If you see 10 cars in front of you, don't bother joining the queue because I can't do that many. Yeah. So the queues when they get to a certain level, they tend to self-regulate because people realise that I'm not going to get through that many cars. But the problem is, some cars in that queue, if they're in front of you, some of them might have problems that can't be fixed, or they've got severe engine issues, which I can't tune anyway, because it's got a big end knocking or something like that. So if there is a queue, it's worth being in it. But the point is, you might be there a while.
Yeah, a normal tuning day for me is about 4 hours a car. That's doing everything, and yeah, trying to do more than 4 cars in a day for me is a stretch, especially if I have to travel to and from the location.
Yeah. So the other thing for people to understand is when I'm tuning at a show like that and I've got a queue of 10 cars, right? You're not getting what you get if I'm at your house, because I haven't got the time, right? What you're going to get is, if your car presents fine with no misfires, right, I'm just going to set the car, I'm going to set the needle up and set the timing and leave it. Yeah, that's it. I'm not going to check the coil power and all the rest of it, because I haven't got time. So what people have to understand is, you're paying less at a show because you're getting less service. What you're paying for is the bit you can't get anywhere else, which is the custom needlework. All right, so that's what you're paying for.
Yeah, if you want fancy tuning from AC, you got to book them directly.
Yeah, so if I come to your house and I've got 3 or 4 hours to work on your car, so be it, and I can spend a bit more time and get everything just so. Whereas if I've got 35 minutes to dial your car in, then I'm going to go straight for the jugular. If it's a lean needle, I'm going to fix that, sort the timing out, set the dwell angle if it needs it, and that's it. Okay, so Stephan Mini Cooper, a few miles long, is referring to the queue. Can be quite long. Apologies. Guitar 3 Rich, just want to say thank you guys for your time. Learned lots. No problem. That's what we're here for. Scott J, when you guys port heads, do you ever follow some standard rules like angling the port to the combustion chamber into the combustion as per Vizard? Trying to fill airtime for more questions. Preferred head castings. Okay, so I don't know. You haven't ported any heads, have you, Darren?
No,
No.
I've cleaned up the castings a little bit, take out some flash or just anything that's obvious, but I typically don't get into the grinding aspect.
Okay, so I've ported loads, so not as many as professional head porters, but I've ported a lot of heads. Yeah, standard rules. If you read something like Vizard's book, it definitely tells you where you need to concentrate, right? So definitely follow the rules like that. There's nothing special about porting a head for a road car, all right? But people go, in my experience, either go massively underdoing it or massively overdo it. All right. So, they think that huge ports and great big tunnel ports are the way forward and all the rest of it. In actual fact, the work really needed in a good cylinder head is all around the valve seat and around the chamber. And that transition around the bowl and up to the bottom of the valve and over the valve seat. That's where the flow is most restricted, and that's where you should spend most of your time. A lot of that work, though, needs to be done with multi-angle seat cutters, and it's very difficult to do that without the right tools.
Just because there's a small space.
Yeah. Preferred head castings. Depends what you're porting. I always like a small valve inlet, unleaded cylinder head for a road car. So a 33mm inlet cylinder head, because it gives you more meat to get the right shape around a bigger valve. So you can cut the bigger valve and you've got plenty of meat there to cut away and shape and make everything just right. Whereas if you start off with the MG head, I wouldn't start off with an MG head unless I was cutting a race head. When I was putting a 37.2 intake, and then that gives me enough room to cut a decent sized valve for what I want. Scott J, what do you think of the Ascasso? I think you're talking about engineering 5-volt main block they're making. It looks a lovely bit of engineering. I have not seen one. I've seen many of the pictures and what they do. Looks like a fantastic bit of engineering. Yeah, great bit of engineering. But I've not had any experience with one.
Yeah, the only fancy engine I saw was the land speed car that got hauled out of here from New Zealand to run on the salt flats. That was an interesting car because it had the twin cam head on the A plus block and just other work that they had done to it to make it reach the land speed record. But yeah, that was the only interesting one I've come across.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, Scott's just adding there is in between. Not too big, but shape for flow. Try to keep the velocity up. That's the way to do it. Keep the gas speed up. Definitely.
Yeah. I remember I had to run an HS4 on a 1380 because there was a problem with its 44, and I still needed to use the car, so I switched carbs. And yeah, it was an instantaneous throttle response, but it topped out at about 60. It just you couldn't get enough fuel through that thing.
So in terms of head porting, I mean, you've really got to be an arse to make one worse because they are so bad to start with that any modifications really make them better. But concentrating around the valve throat and the valve seat and the valve shape and the chamber will net you the biggest rewards. Now, clearly, the more cam you have and the more power you want, the more port mods you need and the bigger the ports need to be. You don't need big ports for a road car.
Because it's all about that efficiency.
Yeah.
On the flow.
Yeah, and what and Stefan Minikoob's asking about the new cast heads. So I haven't seen any of them yet, but I do know Keith Carver has been looking at them. So I don't know any of the results yet, but what he has told me is the consistency seems to be very good.
Well, that's exciting.
Demi-quad, as the MPI engine are more powerful than early 275A plus, right? Interestingly, they do go better, right? And looking at the cam time, and they got a little bit more inlet duration, so it does make the engine have a good mid-range punch, and that goes along with that inlet manifold as well with those nice runners on it. So they have worked on that mean average torque basically. So the engine does run strong. Power wise, it's about the same, but it probably gives quite high torque figures compared to a standard one.
Yeah, I enjoy my MPI, just driving around. It's a very pleasant car. I can't do anything to it, timing wise or fueling wise, but that's not why I bought it. I just bought it because I knew that it'd be just a decent run around. But after having spent a bunch of time doing all the tuning, now I wish I could change the timing on the MPI motor a bit to compensate for my altitude.
Yeah, I mean, well, you could knock the reluctant ring round a bit.
Yeah, I could. That's work. that's more work than recurving the distributor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we look like we're running out of questions. So we've got 7 minutes before we shut off. So if there's any more questions now, there's 37 people online. So I can't believe that all 37 don't want to ask any questions. Scott's doing his best to keep us all in questions, but if there's
Thanks,
any
Scott.
others, then please ask the questions now. Demi-quad, just wondering if they had beefier pistons and rods. No, MPI engines all use the same pistons and rods as all the previous A plus 1275 sort of late 80s, early 90s engines. So all the same. I don't believe you can flash the ECU, Scott, on an MPI.
It's not OBD2. And even then, if you can find a different computer to run it, they wouldn't have the proper fueling to deal with the Siamese port injection problems. That was what I think impressed me the most about what Rover did in terms of their coding to make that work right. Because they only run one injector for 2 cylinders, but they have the bias problem still. So they
The
got some
best
very
way to make
complicated.
those engines fuel injected is to go back to a single point injector.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I just accepted the way it runs as the way it runs. I don't try to make it go any faster. I'm like, this is it. I don't want to mess with it.
Or fit an 8-port head.
Yeah,
Or
well,
7-port
right.
head. But I'd say an 8-port head, because the 7 ports have got massive inlet ports, which are just the port sizes are all wrong for my use.
Yeah, but to Scott's point, you can put a different computer, you know, hack up the harness, fit a different computer, but it's still up to you to get the fueling set up right and get all that stuff set up right. And it's very hard to beat what Rover did with the controlling of that system.
Dean Cook, is there a deep dive presentation on setting up rocker geometry on the horizon? No. But there will be, when I get round to it, a video on how to identify camshafts if you don't know what it is by measurement.
Yeah, my 998 in the red car, that cam had no identification marks on it at all. Not one factory, even a hint of a mark. It was just this completely blank cam. I was surprised by it. I knew it was the original cam for the motor, like no one had touched it, but it was just surprised to run to a cam that had nothing on it.
So we managed to get 54 likes, Darren. That's pretty good.
Nice. Yeah.
There's still 35 or 36 people online, so 4 minutes to go. Any last questions before we sign off? Just another one for Dean there. If you actually look at my 1.3 rocker video, there's a little bit on rocker geometry on the end of that video, I believe. So have a look there, because that might be a bit more information. Scott J, I know you prefer SUs, but in case anyone is running Weber, do you have any advice? Should they switch to an SU? Okay. So if you've got a badly set up Weber, then switch to an SU. Okay. But if your Weber that you're using is perfectly set up, then stick with it. But you might find that there is a benefit to be had if you're doing road mileages and you want to cruise and part throttle fueling and all the rest of it. You might find that you know, typically you might get a few more miles to the gallon with an SU. In terms of outright power, that's where the Weber wins. However, SU have a trick up their sleeve, and it's called the DU carburetor, which is basically SU's version of a Weber. All right, so it's a single carb, but it has 2 chokes and 2 dash pots. All right, so that carburetor will be coming to market at some point in the future. So watch this space.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures. Looks really nice.
Yeah, it was. They made it in the 60s, but from the original factory. But now Berling are working on it, and they've been working on it for a few years now. And once it's ready, I assume it will be ready for production.
Well, hopefully you get your hands on one. Do a tune.
Yes. So Scott J, I've heard there's a difference in atomization between two systems. Yes, there is. And there is a difference between atomization on the Weber and the Dell'Auto as well. So some engines run better on a Dell'Auto versus a Weber because of the atomization.
Right. But it takes so many parts to tune a Weber. There's just like main jet, auxiliary jet, the Venturis. It's just like there's so many little pieces that you need to tweak.
Yeah. Would you run that DU, Dodd? If I had a spare $2,000 burning hole in my pocket, I might do. Yeah. They're not going to be cheap.
So you picked up any interesting new shop equipment at the end of the year, early this coming year? Any new bits?
What, me?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I've got is new shop equipment. I had a friend that dropped me a load of stuff off just before Christmas, because he's going to leave and go over to see you in America. I don't know where he's going to go, but he's going to go to America somewhere. And he's an old friend of mine. We did our apprenticeship together, and he left me a load of his old engineering tools and various bits and pieces.
Oh, cool.
And he gave me his whole set of parallels that he'd made many years ago. I haven't got any parallels. Well, only a few, but I've now got a whole set of big chunky ones which he made. Which they are a little rusty, but I'm just going to refurb them and and he left me a surface plate and a few other bits and pieces. So I've had a nice Christmas.
Very nice. Yeah, it does sound like a nice gift.
Yeah.
I ended up getting an inspection camera as a gift. So this is probably not rated for automotive use, but I will use it for some cylinder inspection. It's got 50 feet of cable, so I don't need that much cable to do that. But looking forward to playing about with that a little bit.
Yeah. So one other thing I did, but I bought myself a cheap digital microscope to go on the phone, and 40 quid from Amazon. It's bloody brilliant. It doesn't do the resolution that they say it does, but it's very good for looking at things like knife edges and things like that, or looking at cracks in cylinder heads, for example.
Yeah.
So for a 40 quid purchase, I thought that was very good. Scott's just come up. Would you daily a mini again, Dodd? I probably would do round town. I mean, I did seriously think about having one built, for doing the tuning, but driving to Doncaster 420 miles in one day, not really sure I want to do it in a mini.
Yeah, I agree. Well, out here we've got 80-mile-an-hour speed limits, so you're pushing those engines hard just to go anywhere.
Yeah. So I think for me, I'll stick with the Ford. And he's saying, how is the Ford? So far, she's bang on. Not using a drop of oil, so I'm very happy at the moment.
Perfect. Yeah, you were lucky to get that crate engine for that thing.
Yeah, well, so far so good, but we shall see how long it lasts. It's got, I think it's about 1,800 miles on it now, and it's all seems to be good. So, right, I think we've reached that point. So I think we need to end it there. It's just 2 minutes past 10. So what we'll do is we'll end it there, and we'll catch you lot. 3 or 4 weeks time, maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah.
So
in the new year.
Yeah, in the new year. So with that, I think we'll wish everybody a happy new year. Don't drink too much, by the way, everybody. Just enjoy yourself. All right, and we'll look forward to catching you up in the new year in January at some point. Just keep an eye on my Facebook page for when that might be. I'll always, as usual, I'll drop it in at short notice so we avoid a lot of the trolls and such like. But it's been very good tonight.
Yeah, it's been very good. A lot of good questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, I'll see you all later.
See you guys. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.